Hi guys, how's it going? Hope all's going well. Everybody's doing good. In this video today, I'd like to discuss the impact abuse has on children. So, this is going to be a touchy one a little bit for me because as a child, that's when my abuse started in my family. But a lot of people think that just because a child isn't physically harmed, that, you know, they're not being, they're not suffering for any kind of trauma because they're not physically being harmed, and that's not the case at all. So today I'm going to get into the subject that often's overlooked when discussing abuse and domestic violence, the impact that abuse has on children. While adults may be the direct victims of physical, emotional, verbal, sexual, or financial abuse, children are often the silent victims. So they're not the ones that being directly harmed. They witness, hear, absorb the trauma and happenings around them. So if the child happens to see dad hitting mom, I mean, of course they're going to be impacted by it. They're going to start to learn to feel living in fear. You know, when's dad going to fly off at the handle? Or when's mom going to fly off at the handle if mom's the abuser? You know, it just depends on the situation. So, but children are incredibly resilient, but they also are very vulnerable. And the experiences they have during childhood help shape how they see themselves later on in life and around others as well. Abuse enters a child's life. It can leave deep emotional, psychological, spiritual, and even physical scars that may last well into the adulthood. And for me, it did. I used to hear, now what's weird is my sisters never heard it, but I would wake up because my room was right across from my father's and mother's room. And I would wake up hearing my dad smack my mom and my mom crying. And so I noticed that it would never happen in front of us. It was always behind closed doors and late at night when they thought we were asleep. So what I would do as moving forward, when I heard that, I started rearranging my room late at night just so he wouldn't hit her, because he would know that I'm awake and he wouldn't put his hands on her. And so that was one of the things. And then two, you know, I was born left-handed, and my father used to, at the dinner table, would smack me and send me to my room if I picked up a fork with my left hand, because his philosophy was this world isn't built for left-handed people, it's built for right-handed people. And so although that may be his philosophy, it left an impact on me going forward, not feeling worthy. And then just some other things, always telling me you need a rich man to make it in life, instead of, you know, encouraging me that, you know, all I have to do is go to school and get a good education and, you know, be productive for my own life. It was, oh, you have to find somebody that's rich to take care of you. And that mindset just carried through for me in a lot of my relationships in my adult life. And there was other things he did. You know, if I disagreed with some of his, you know, things growing up, you know, I would often get smacked. And I was disciplined with the bamboo back scratcher with the jade handle. And when he hit me with that, boy, it hurt. It was a solid back scratcher. It wasn't like these whimsy ones today. It hurt. And, you know, that's how I got disciplined. So it does affect you as a kid if you experience any kind of domestic violence. it does impact you moving forward into your adulthood. And children are often always affected, but one of the biggest misconceptions about domestic violence and abuse is the belief that children are unaffected if they're not directly harmed. And that is so not true. Like I just told you, my father wasn't hitting me. I would wake up hearing him hit my mother. And moving forward, it was always a constant fear, when's he going to do it again? And that's just no way to be. So, but many adults will say things like the children were asleep or they were in another room, and that's why they feel they aren't impacted. And like I said, I was in the other room, I could hear it, and it just wasn't good. And hearing the arguments through walls, and then maybe seeing bruises, tears, fear, noticing changes in behavior, they feel that tension in the home too. So it does impact them, and it impacts them in school. It impacts them with having friends and how they get along with their peers. Even in infants can sense stress and fear in caregivers. Child living in an abusive home often learns to stay alert, watching for signs that another incident may occur. Instead of feeling safe, they live in constant state of uncertainty. And that for me, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And like I said, that's why I've had over 5 decades of abuse. And I'm better now. I mean, I even had, later on in my life, I even was addicted to marijuana for the longest time. And I have ADHD and I have anxiety because of a lot. Well, the ADHD is inherited, but the anxiety, that may be inherited, but I surely had my share of high anxiety where I felt like I was crawling in my skin because of everything I had been through. So it just, moving forward, it affected my relationships. It affected the way I was with peers. I didn't really have any friends. As a kid, I didn't have any friends. I was isolated. Just stuff like that. So it does impact whether they're being harmed physically by a parent. It does impact them. It's a continuous, constant feeling of fear, living in fear, and when's it going to happen again? And oh my God, is mom going to die, or is dad going to do it again? And just so many things. And a kid is so vulnerable. They pick up on everything. And so you want a child to grow up and live a successful life. And when they're exposed to that early on, it's difficult for them to have that success. Because they're always in fear, and that's no way to live. And so I hope this helps somebody kind of clear up some of the misconceptions of, if a child isn't exposed to the actual abuse, they're not being harmed. And that's further from the truth, because they are being harmed. And like I said, they're living in constant fear, and when is it going to happen again? And they have a hard time, developing friendships and co-mingling with their peers, and it's just very difficult. And so I hope this helps somebody who has children, and please take this very seriously, because it does impact them. And I think that's one of the reasons why I finally left my abuser, is because I had babies at the time when I left my abuser, and I didn't want my children being raised and growing up thinking it's okay that dad's hitting mom for whatever reason, because it's not. No one has the right to put their hands on you. No one. And no one has the right to take that from any child, of living in, constant living in fear. You don't have that right to take that from a child, whoever's abusing you. And that's what they're doing. The abuser is doing that. They're taking that safe environment life from the child because of what they're being exposed to. And it's their problem, the abusers. It's their problem, not yours. So remember that. You're the one that is loved and worthy, and no one has the right to put their hands on you. Ever. Ever. And for the children, if they are being harmed, that's even worse. It's even worse. So, because the bruises go away, the mental part stays. And compounded with you're not worthy, you're not going to be good enough for anybody growing up, and how could you do this, and I don't trust you, or whatever the case may be. It's not good for any child to experience that kind of environment. So with that said, I hope that if you like this, message that I'm giving you about the misconceptions of what people think, if a child isn't directly harmed in physical abuse, that they're not being impacted by it, because they are. And I just outlined a few reasons on how they are impacted by it, and what can, moving forward in their life, what it can do and how it can damage their relationships moving forward. So if you like this content, please visit youtube.com/@lives healing. And if you want to talk to me for any kind of support, leave a comment. I'll answer you. I have an email. I'll respond to that. If you need help for anything, just know that you're loved and I care about you. And thank you so much. And like and subscribe if you like this content. Have a great day.